I gotta click it, right? Okay. Excuse me, guys. Okay. Um, I just want to mention one thing. I'll be doing my part of the series tonight, and then next week, normally for our grief series, Pat Opes, who's our grief counselor, will be joining me next week. I'll be with her, and she concludes the series. And Pat does a great job. Pat's been a grief counselor for a lot of years and is doing a lot of work right now with parents who have lost children. And fundamentally, she also is really powerful in the grief area. So I'm glad to have her joining me next week to include the series. Then starting in March, I'll be doing the series on codependency. So we're going through codependency again because we got a lot of codependence here, so I got to do codependency. What can I tell you? It's me. That's why I got to do it. Okay. I'm going to start tonight by doing a reading from a book I really love. It's called Until Today. It's one of my meditation books. It was given to me a long time ago. I always read this every day in the front. It was by Teresa Barrett. We lost Teresa. She was one of our very special counselors at one time. So I just miss her a lot. So every morning when I read her a little note she wrote me, and it kind of brings me back to be connected to her. And so a lot of things like that are kind of, as you get older, nostalgia things become important. March 19th. Author John Roger wrote, "We're only born once into life, but in life we are reborn many times." He was describing the many, many deaths we experience on our journey through life. We die to old ways of being to be reborn in our power. We die to old beliefs to be reborn into the truth. We die to habits of need, dependency, and control to be reborn to reliance and spirit. We die to fear of spirit to be reborn into the spirit of fearlessness. As long as you are still breathing, death becomes what we commonly call change. Just for today, lay down your notions and fears about death and be willing to change. Today, I'm devoted to accepting that I must accept death in order to change. I wanted to read that because it's one of my favorite readings. And I wanted because tonight I want to talk about the last two stages of grieving, sadness and acceptance. You know, in the past week, we talked about the first three stages. And I know a lot of us kind of get stuck in those stages. But eventually, over time, and when we're ready, only when we're ready, we come to that, what I call that feeling of sadness, that feeling of loss, that feeling of change. Now, I like the analogy to death because I think sometimes when we think of death, we think of somebody physically dying. But in life, we experience death physically, emotionally, spiritually. We even experience death socially. Because death fundamentally is the process of change we all go through. And as a result, you have to be able to let go of the old and be open to the new. A part of it is saying goodbye to the old. You know, it's fortunate sometimes we have the opportunity when we do lose somebody in death to be able to say goodbye. And goodbye is a powerful process. But in life, we experience these little mini deaths or these changes in a constant process of life, in relationships, in our relationship with God, our belief systems. Everything has a process of change involved in it. To give you an example, I grew up in the 40s, and I had these very interesting ladies teach me in the 40s. I think they called them nuns. I called them drill sergeants for the Marines. But fundamentally, they basically taught me fear, guilt, and all kinds of being scared to death of God. God was something I just lived in total fear of constantly. As I went through the priesthood in different parts of my life, I realized I had to go through a change process. My belief system today is totally different. Today, my belief system is a God of love, a God of peacefulness, a God I can relate to, I can talk to. And so I've learned to go through transition and go through change just in that one area, but also in the area of letting go of people that basically are part of your journey. but then they move forward. I was looking at a photograph on my wall right here of my cousins. We used to have my cousins reunion every year. I used to organize it. And we had over 15 people coming to the reunion. Now, guess what? There's 3 of us. And now I found out I'm the patriarch. My cousin Frankie told me last year, he said, and if I leave soon, you'll be in charge. I said, you're not going anywhere. Don't worry about it. And he died last year. And so now basically it's just the 3 of us left. And that's a powerful process to look at in life, because as we go through transition, we go through aging, the different areas of life, we begin to realize the fact that things change. Your body changes, physical things change. Change is a big part of the journey of life, because I'm going to tell you, there are no absolutes. There are none. So if you're looking for an absolute, you're in trouble, because things are going to happen. Loretta and I were talking about today, we go to doctors and they say, oh, it's old age. Your body's changing. This is that and everything else. Smack them around a little bit, but you can't do that. It's got to be a little bit more than just that. And yet, I know. You begin to feel things differently. Things happen differently. Some things stay longer. You begin to grow a beard like Gene. Other things begin to happen. It's totally amazing when you come right down to it. Then Charlie loses his hair just like I did. So does Walt. So it's because part of our journey, part of life. So we look at life differently, and we have to realize it's okay to allow yourself to go through change and to realize the fact you're not going to be young forever. There are different stages to life. You have to learn how to say goodbye to them. There's a sadness in that. There's a sadness in not being able to do some of the things you could do before. I refereed basketball for a lot of years. And there's a sadness inside of me. There's still a part of me that thinks I can still do it. But guess what? Paul knows that I can't do it. The bottom line is, I keep thinking I can up here. But I know I'm not going to be up to running down that court with 16-year-olds. I have to wear an oxygen tank while I go up and down the court. But the bottom line is, there's a sadness to that, because it means I have to come to an acceptance of new things in my body and new ways of life and new dimensions and new changes. And so as a result, then we have to realize the fact that we have different ways in which we look at life. When you're 20 years old, you think 30 is old, right? When you're 30, you think 50 is old. When you're 50, you think 60 is old. When you're 70, you think 80 is old. Now that I'm 80, no more old. So the concept is, it keeps changing as you change. And yet there's a sadness to letting go of what was, letting go of your youth. Even when you look at things like your children, your grandchildren, people that grow up, they move on in life. I even look at things today that I have to be able to go with the process of change. There's a sadness in that. I was telling the story of my oldest grandson, when he was born, he was 1 pound, 13 ounces. I held him in my hand. He was like a slab of butter. Beautiful little child. And when he left the hospital, we couldn't find clothes to fit him. He was too small. So we took the clothes off my stuffed animals and he wore them. I look at that today, and then all of a sudden I'm at his wedding. And he's this big hunk of guy. He's changed completely. I went to his wedding when he was 24 years old. And I even got a kick out of the wedding because they had a 21-year-old disc jockey, and they're playing this music. Everybody's going boom, 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 up and down and jumping around like crazy. So I went over to the disc jockey, 21 years old. I said to him, we have some old people here, people that are older. I said, do you happen to have a little Tony Bennett or something like that? He said, Tony who? I want to smack him. I really did. I wanted to smack him. He didn't know what I was talking about. And yet I realized today, that's reality. I got to look at it that way. If I want to hear Tony Bennett or Dean Martin or them, I better find somebody closer to my age to be a disc jockey. We have a guy we know, so I'll get him, that's all. But the bottom line is transition and change. Music transitions, everything changes. And one of the hardest things for us to do is to try to remember and go back. There's a sadness in that. I look at Starting Point, and the other day, Sunday afternoon, I did a memorial service for one of my very close friends from South Philadelphia. And we put his plaque up on the wall, and I had his family there, and all my friends from the South Philadelphia group were there. And we were just reminiscing about things of the past and some of the old timers and people that were part of our journey for a long period of time. And, as we talked about that, there was a sadness to it. This one guy came up to me, and we're at the front of the building, and there's a photograph there of the house as it was back in the beginning. He put his arm around me and he said, "You remember events in 1980? He pointed to the door at the side of the house and he said, "I walked through that door and sat down with you. You did my fifth step with me. You hugged me. You told me that I'm going to be okay. And I'm still okay. I'm doing good today." He said, "I'll never forget that. That door will always be important to me, walking through it." I look at that and I know now we have a brick from the old house and in a case, a memento. And things like that are important. As you look around where you are, we need to have stuff that brings memories and things back to us. Carol and I were talking about that earlier, about her office and different things she has that connect to her. That's why it's important to have your stuff, because memories are beautiful. They're sad sometimes. And yet at the same time, they're part of the grieving process. They're part of the growing process we go in life. Even people we have lost in one way or another. There's a grieving involved in that, but we want to have memories of them. We don't want to just block it out. They're part of our life and part of our journey. And they really haven't died. They may have died physically, but they're in our heart. They're part of our journey. They're part of our memories. They're part of who we are. That goes for our children or anybody else. I know children are not supposed to die before their parents, but it does happen. And yet we have to be able to have that and hold that. And that's why it's so beautiful when we talk about the grieving process, when you come to that point of sadness. And so many of us are scared of that. I know I was for a long period of time, but now I'm a lot better with it because I realized the fact that the journey goes on. I was with my South Philly gang, I was going over the memorial wall at Starting Point, because that's where we had the memorial service. And we were just going back and forth about different names on the wall, things they remember, things that were connected from way back. And I looked at that wall and I just had a thought went through my mind. I said, one day my name's going to be up on that wall. It'll be there. It's all part of life. It's part of the journey. I keep telling Loretta, save a special spot for me, okay? It's not a problem. But see, things change. Even Starting Point changes. Everything changes. There's a sadness in that, and yet there's a joy in it. You heard me say this so many times how things in life can be beautiful, and they can be hard at times. Things we go through struggle, we go through changes in life. I always tell the story. I know we have a lot of mothers in here, so this is for all of you. Of course, you know what I'm talking about. It's almost like when we came into this world, birth. Birth to me is the first struggle of life. We have this little kid inside the womb. He's probably Italian. I have to say that. We don't know what he was. Anyway, we have this little Italian kid inside the womb, and he's sitting there. He's nice and warm. He's comfortable. Everything's real nice. He's in his little cocoon. And then something happens. He keeps growing and getting bigger. He's not supposed to do that. Leave me alone, will you? And then all of a sudden, there comes a point. He's got to leave. And they keep telling him he's got to leave. He don't want to leave. He likes it there. And then we got this wacky doctor on the other side saying, push. He's saying to the doctor, stop it. No pushing. I don't want to go. So the first struggle of life takes place. And mothers know what that's all about. It's painful. It's scary. There's struggle involved in it. And yet, once that child is born, it's almost like the sadness and the struggle goes away. And there's that beautiful concept of a new life. But then that crazy doctor grabs you and smacks you. And all of a sudden, I'm in a nice, comfortable place. I come out. I get smacked. Here we go. Here comes the journey. And I like using that example because the struggle we go through in the process of birth is teaching us as we go through the journey of life. We're going to go through different struggles and struggles. We're going to go through losses. We're going to go through changes. We're going to go through things that are part of our journey. And that's so important. Because I think sometimes we get scared, we get afraid, and then we try to control it. I don't know about you. If you think you can control life, I want you to call me so I can take you on tour, okay? You can't control life. You can't control anything. See, I love the concept that nothing is absolute. Things are always in process. They're always changing. And there's sadness involved in that. And the biggest part of the grieving process is going through that sadness, feeling it, being in touch with it. And that's okay. Because I really believe without that, you can't grow. So it's all part of the process we go through in life. You know, it's nice to go back in books and look at photographs of how you looked when you were 19, 20 years old and all that. I got a beautiful photograph of me when I was a priest, you know, when I was just got ordained. I think I was 25, 26 years old. God, I looked good. God, did I look good. I don't know what happened, but I look good. The bottom line is I look a lot different today than I did then. It's totally amazing. You know, when they did that documentary on Starting Point and me, and I looked at some of the pictures and things in there, and I said, wow, what changes, what things move on. And I love being around people as they go through changes because I realize they're teaching me a lot about myself as a person. But see, you've got to go through that period of sadness. You have to be able to learn how to say goodbye, how to let go so we can move on. I'm going to tell you something. You won't do this until you're ready to do it. Nobody can make you do it. And that's why everything I'm talking about tonight takes time, takes patience. It's got to happen a little bit at a time. That's how growth is. And I realize this because I realize in life, it's all part of the process of life. You know, Starting Point is going through its transition. It's going through its changes. Thank God we got that crazy lady that runs it now. It's fantastic. But the bottom line is, even people that were there, people that worked at one time, people that were counselors at one time, I go in and see the wall of counselors, people that have passed on. I have memories of them all, connected to them all. You know, I read Teresa's thing in the morning. It brings back a lot of memories of a very special lady who was part of my journey and part of my life for a long period of time. And there's a sadness in that. And yet, there's a beauty in it too. Because sadness eventually will take us to the gift of acceptance. Now, this is the hardest thing for me to do, and I'm going to be honest with you. To try to explain acceptance, I just can't do it. I don't know how to explain it. Acceptance is something you have to feel. There's like a sense of peace that comes over you. You come to that point in your life. You're able just to be comfortable where you're at and what's going on in your life. There's a peacefulness, there's a gentleness to this. And that's why I always kind of look at these spiritual words that are so important. The one powerful spiritual word is acceptance. It is the most powerful spiritual word there is on the face of the earth. And on page 417 in the big book, they so powerfully put this. Only till you come acceptance can you grow. Only can you come to acceptance can you move on. Come to the acceptance of who I am and what I'm all about. There's a truth involved in that. There's a peace involved in all of that. It's a big part of it. That's why the Serenity Prayer is so powerful. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I can't change life. Life is what it is. It's a journey. How long will you be here? Nobody knows. You know, I got a kick out of this. One day I was walking down the hallway of Starting Point and some lady came up to me and said, Vince, can I ask you a question? I said, sure, what? She said, what's going to happen to Starting Point if you die? I said, how the hell do I know? I don't know. I'll be dead. You know, it'll go where it's supposed to go. It'll move where it's supposed to move. I have no control over any of that. I laugh at the question, but it's people go through these things in life. What's going to happen to me if my spouse dies? What's going to happen to me if I lose a child? What's going to happen to me if things change in my life? People that go through relationships that don't work, that end. How can I say goodbye? How can I do closure? That's one of the dangers a lot of times in relationships, because when something comes to an end, you got to do closure before you can move on. And sometimes we do a lot of rebounding. We just jump from one thing to another because we're afraid to feel the feelings, feel the sadness, feel the loss, but come to the acceptance. Even in a relationship, no matter what the relationship is, over years, it changes. It doesn't stay the same. It doesn't have that same excitement as it may have had in the beginning. It has a different kind of excitement now. There's also an adjustment that takes place. There goes my second spiritual word. Adjustment. Change, acceptance, and adjustment. God, we're always adjusting to a new way of life, to a new direction. Addicts know what I'm talking about. When you let go of addiction and you get into recovery, recovery is not easy because it means I have to say goodbye to a way of life I was comfortable with and I lived for a long period of time. And now I've got to open my eyes to a whole new direction. I knew this when I left the priesthood. You know, it's amazing. I knew 10 years before I left, I wanted to leave up here, the intellect. But I was too scared to make a decision, too scared to move on. So what did I do? I bounced around, did a lot of blaming, did all kinds of crazy stuff until finally I had people who helped me and stayed with me and helped me through the process of taking a risk. Everything you go through, a new way of life, there's a risk involved in it. And yet so many times I hear this, especially by most of us card-carrying codependents. Now, if I do this, will everything work out just the way I want it to? I don't know. Just do it. See what happens. You know, so many times in life, we try to figure life out. You better buy a bottle of Excedrin if you want to try to figure life out. You get agita and you get these things in your head. It's crazy. You're not going to figure it out. Life has these twists and these turns and things. We have losses, we have growth, and yet acceptance, adjustment is part of the spiritual journey of life. The other two spiritual words are supposed to. Now, why did that happen to me? Because it did. It's part of your journey. You have to be able to accept it, to embrace it, to learn from it, to grow from it. Even tragedy. Why did it happen? Because it did. Yeah, we'll get mad at God, we'll go through changes and all that, but eventually we have to come to acceptance. And through acceptance, I'm able to embrace it, let it become part of me, so I can now move on and move in a new direction. That goes for sickness, it goes for a lot of things we go through in life. You know, a good friend of mine had the virus pretty bad. He was in a hospital for a long time. You know, in fact, we almost lost him. He was able to come through it. And he was in the hospital, got close to 4 months. And finally, he got out. And finally, he was able to start pulling himself together. But I had a conversation with him a few weeks ago, and he said to me, Vince, it's been months now since I've been out of the hospital. And I still haven't shaken this thing. I'm still going through, I'm exhausted all the time. I'm still going through changes. And now he said, I need to get some psychological help. He wants me to help him get into therapy, to help him work through some of this stuff. He said, you know, my life has changed completely. And the thing I've learned is, you taught me this, I have to adjust to it. It's not going to be the same as it was before. I can't go back. I went through something very horrible. It changed me. It changed my life. It changed who I am. And we see this a lot of times now when we're going through this process of the pandemic. And people, even now, we get a little crazy in the world we live in because I want everything to go back to normal. Hey, Virginia, there's a new normal. It's not going to go back. Things are going to change. But look at the good parts of things. Come to an acceptance and see the positive. I mean, I look at these lectures on Zoom. I'm getting to see people I haven't seen in years. People in different parts of the country. I'm getting connected to people. It's beautiful. It's all part of the journey. One of my closest friends is in California. It's amazing. You come right down to it. And I love getting connected in that direction because it means I can expand myself up. I can be connected to different people in different places. It's an adventure. So I really look at life and the grieving process as a process of adventure. But it comes down to my attitude and how I face it and how I deal with it. I know we're scared of sadness. We're scared of hurting. We're scared of struggle. We're scared of going through changes in life. But isn't that what life is? And struggles will take us to the next part, to the next journey. Saying goodbye is never easy. I had to say goodbye to my father when I was 26 years old. I had to say goodbye to my mother when I was 42. I had to say goodbye to a lot of my family. I had to say goodbye to people who helped me start Starting Point back in the beginning. A lot of goodbyes. And yet, a lot of beautiful memories, things that are connected. How many times I still quote my father? My father didn't die. My father gave me so much wisdom, so many beautiful little things that it took me years and years and years to get in touch with. Isn't that amazing? That beautiful man from Italy planted these seeds inside of me. And yet they didn't get nurtured or they didn't come out. So I got some wisdom and I got some energy and I got some strength. And I began a growth process of my own. I can now remember now very clearly the things he said to me. Like he drilled that word into me. That's why I had to put it up on the wall, Starting Point. Pacienza, Wayon, Pacienza, Wayon. Patience, my son, patience, my son. Everything will happen when it's supposed to happen. I don't know what he was talking about back then. Now I do. It's amazing, isn't it? Why do things happen? I can't answer that question. People ask it to me all the time. Why did this happen to me? I don't know. I can't answer that. None of us can answer it. But it did. So now I have to be able to adjust my life accordingly and work with it accordingly. One of my relatives is going through a lot of physical problems, from diabetes. She's lost part of her feet, part of different types of things. She's doing really well today. She's going through a lot of struggles, but I got to give her a lot of credit. I keep telling her she has 14 lives, not 9. And yet she hangs in there. The beautiful thing about it is I love her attitude. She says, I don't know why God put these things on me, but I guess I'm supposed to go through a struggle. I'm supposed to go through this. And hopefully I'll be a better person as a result of it. That takes a lot of courage. A lot of courage. We end up doing a lot of complaining. Why is this thing the way it's supposed? No, things happen the way they're supposed to happen. Be able to embrace them, learn from them, and grow from them. Doing that is not easy. I'm not talking about easy things tonight. Because going through struggle, coming to a sense of peace, coming to a sense of serenity, takes a lot of time. I'll never forget, when my oldest grandson was born, and we found out that my daughter had a blood disease. We never thought she'd have any more children. But in a way, he was a blessing being born prematurely because they found out about this blood disease that she had. And as a result, they'll be able to treat it. They didn't know she had it before. And as a result, then she ended up having another child. She ended up having a full life. She had to make a lot of adjustments, but thank God they found it. Otherwise, she wouldn't be here with us today. And so you can look back on things and say, thank you, God. I'm glad this was discovered. Do we get scared? Yeah. Sometimes we go to a doctor. The doctor tells us a certain thing about ourselves. We have to make changes. Do we want to make changes? No. I want to stay young forever. Hey, it doesn't work. Right, Paul? It doesn't work. It's all part of it. Got to keep moving forward. That's what it's all about. And I get a kick out of that today because I love young people. I love being around them. We have interns at our place, and I just adore them. They're just starting out. They're just getting their feet wet. They're going through all kinds of changes. And they ask you some of the most interesting questions. I get the kick out of it sometimes. Now, I got this guy. What do I do with him? I said, nothing. What do you mean nothing? I got all these kinds of therapies I learned. I want to try some. Leave the man alone, will you? I said, all he wants to do, and let's look at his history, okay? He's been to all kinds of therapists before. What you do is you listen to him, you be quiet and listen. And then we got all kinds of meetings around our place and programs, send him to all the programs. And she said, is that all? Is that it? I said, yeah, that's it. Well, the guy's great now. He goes to ACOA, he goes to CODA, he goes to Recovery Inc. He goes to anything we have going on in the place. Whether he belongs there or not, I don't know. But he's happy. He's got friends. He's got a social life now. He has people he can talk to. He can make phone calls to. See how simple it was? I said to them, see the good therapy you just did? You just became a therapist today. Congratulations. Don't worry about all that book knowledge. That stuff is good. It seeds are planted inside of you. But you got to go with people where they are. Love them where they're at. Let them come at their own pace. Let them move. And sometimes people are just lonely. That's okay. And so the therapist came back to me, the intern, and she said, thanks, Vince. I just learned a valuable lesson. I says, hey, come on. You think I learned the same way you're learning them? We all learn that way. It's all part of it. And thank God there are people in life that are also teachers to help us on the journey. And so I have a lot of gratitude today because I really believe very deeply that the grieving process is the ultimate process of life. Yes, we're going to experience death. Last time I checked, I think we all have a round trip ticket. I'm pretty sure, right, y'all? We all got a round trip ticket. Someday, God's going to punch the return trip. And we've got to make that trip. It's all part of the journey. And the sooner I accept that and stay with that, I was laughing today. I was talking to somebody at Starting Point, and they were talking about, what's going to happen in 2050. I says, not worried about it. I said, what do you mean? I said, I ain't worried about it. I won't be here in 2050. If I am, I'll be 110 years old. It'll be interesting, won't it? Then I can keep bugging Carol. It'll be fantastic and unbelievable. But the fun part about life, I can have a lot of fun, And as you get older, I guess you learn to laugh more, to enjoy life more, to celebrate more. You also learn to go to bed earlier. I look back when I was, more active at Starting Point, and I was giving lectures 5 nights a week. I was driving, selling books out of the trunk of my car, running around like crazy. And Crazy Jerome, he's here somewhere, but he used to run around with me and take the collection and sell the books and do all that stuff. And we'd be all over the place. I get home 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night. Now, 8:30, I'm done. I go to bed. I sleep. Ooh, it's wonderful. It's fantastic. Of course, I get up at 4:30 too. I'm out there having some fun too. But the bottom line is, I've learned to realize everything changes. It's totally amazing. You come down to it. I give Loretta a hard time because, it's all part of it. I got to make sure I give somebody a hard time. I give John a hard time all the time. So it's not a problem. I just have to enjoy it, right? I mean, John's trying to be Santa Claus, but that's okay. He's growing that beard. It's getting whiter, John. That's the fun part about life. But we look at life that way. We can look at ourselves and look at each other, and we can laugh and enjoy and celebrate. But be who you are. Go through your journey. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to go through hurt. You're going to go through struggle. You're going to go through pain. Instead of fighting it and battling it, try your best to embrace it. And hopefully, we can adjust and learn from it and move forward. And the hardest thing in the world to do is to say goodbye. To say goodbye. But we can't say hello until we learn how to say goodbye. I know people in my life that they're gone now. They're gone. Their body is gone, but their spirit's around. But I love having memorabilia and stuff around me. I mean, you come to my office here, you'll see all of it, all over the place. There's memories all over the place. My office is Starting Point. There's memories of things that go back to when I was younger and all kinds of stuff. And I love just walking around the room. I call it the room of memorabilia. I look at old Starting Point. I look at the first bulletin we put out in Starting Point was a one-page little thing. And at the top it said Reverend Vincent Di Pasquale. Crazy days. Paul remembers a little bit of that. The bottom line is, all that stuff is still there. It's all part of it. But it brings you back to memories. And memories are important. When you lose someone, don't lose their memories. They're part of who you are. Feel the sadness sometimes that they're not here anymore. Be in touch with that. At the same time, stay in touch with them, okay? Don't forget. Like this little book that was given to me by Teresa. Now, this is a precious thing to me right now because when I open it in the morning and I see her handwriting and just a simple message that she wishes me, her friend, peace and love every day of my life. Just to read that every morning and be connected. That means so much to me. It's these little things like this that mean so much. It's a connection to people that have been part of your journey and part of your life. I still remember Bernie, who was a counselor at our place. I go back to the 80s when he got sober, and I'll never forget. He was a fantastic Jewish guy. He was crazy. I love Bernie. And Bernie used to bug me to death about the higher power. And then Bernie got sober and he kept bugging me. And he bugged me to the day he died. And he became a counselor at Starting Point. It was a beautiful, fantastic job with drug addicts and alcoholics. Some of the work he did was unbelievable. I still have his memories. But that one memory I have of him, I'll never forget. I was giving a talk back when I was a priest at Charter Fairmont in Philadelphia. And he came up to me, he kept bugging me about my higher power. And I brought him outside and I said, Bernie, come with me. There was a tree outside. I said, Bernie, come out here every morning and hug the tree and ask the tree to keep you sober. At nighttime, come out here and give that tree a big hug and thank you for keeping you sober. I came back a week later. I said, you hugged the tree? He said, yeah. You still sober? Yeah. Good. That's your higher power. Leave me alone. Don't bother me no more. I loved it. And Bernie and I never forgot that. And at his eulogy, at his funeral, I told the story of Bernie and his connection to the higher power. There's so many beautiful memories of little things. Do I miss him? Yeah, a lot. I miss him a bunch. He was part of my life and part of my journey. And we lost him suddenly. It's sad. But he's still part of it. So I go in there and see his photo, his picture up on the wall. And I say, hi, Bern. I can have a conversation with him. So remember these things, they're important. Memories are a big part of growth. They're a part of sadness. They're a part of acceptance, and they're a part of growth. But coming to acceptance is coming to peace with yourself and with others and the life you're connected with in life. It's all part of it. Because again, the journey goes on. It's a beautiful part of what life really is all about. I hope this grieving process, there's certain lectures that we did, help you understand the grieving process just a little bit better, because it is the ultimate process of life. Death is part of it. Emotional death is part of it. A lady came to me one time and she said, I really need to get away from my husband. He's driving me crazy, making me nuts. I just can't take it anymore. But I took a vow that said, till death do us part. How to remind her. There's different kinds of death: physical, emotional, and spiritual. So if it's emotionally dead and spiritually dead, it's 2/3 dead. Don't do the other third. Get a lawyer instead. But the bottom line is life goes on. It's part of the journey. You have to say goodbye. That's what it comes down to. We get so caught up in it sometimes that we're afraid. And fear is part of this journey, but I've learned something. The two biggest enemies to grieving and to growth are fear and control. Replace them with love. Replace them with journey. Replace them with struggle. Replace them with acceptance and adjustment. It's a big part of our journey in life. So my prayer tonight, I just want to pray and ask us that we continue working on this grieving process for our life and go through our growth process. Our aging process, congratulations, it's great, isn't it? It's unbelievable, but it's a big part of this journey that we're on together. And if we just do it together and experience new things in our life, everything will come to where it's supposed to come. It will happen in God's time, not in our time. That's the secret to everything we do in life. So let us pray. God, we come before you tonight as a family. We come before you in humility. We come before you in prayer. But above all, we come before you in gratitude. We thank you for the journey of our life. Thank you for the journey of those who have been part of our journey in life. We thank you for those who have gone before us. We thank you for those that will come. But above all, we thank you for today. Please give us the strength and courage to go through our struggles, to go through our growth. Teach us the gift of acceptance. Teach us to learn from all the experiences we go through in life. And realize the fact that no matter what happens, please, if we just stay plugged in and close to you and ask for your guidance and your direction, you will always send messengers and teachers into our life. Please help me to be more open to them. Help me to grow more as a result of it. So with gratitude, with love, with humility, but above all, with acceptance, we go on this journey and we continue it one day at a time till we are brought back close to you again. But be with us as we walk the journey of this earth. We pray, we ask this for guidance and direction, and we ask it in your name. Amen. And now if you unmute yourself, I'm going to have our maestro, Pat, lead us in the Serenity Prayer.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God's will, not mine, be done.